The crystalline arena pulsed with an ethereal glow as Commander Jasper Rhodes faced his opponent across the ceremonial circle. Sentinel Draken, the Tyrian champion, stood nearly 9 feet tall, his iridescent scales shifting colors beneath the twin moons of Tyria Prime. The alien warrior's cybernetic enhancements hummed with deadly energy, a stark contrast to Jasper's basic combat suit. "Last chance, human," Draken's translator echoed. "Withdraw your challenge, and your species can accept our terms of submission." Jasper tightened his grip on the ceremonial blade. 6 months of diplomatic failures had led to this moment, Earth's last hope resting on an ancient Tyrian tradition that allowed challenges to authority through ritual combat. "I didn't cross 30 light-years to kneel," he replied, voice steady despite the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The arena erupted in whispers as High Archon Nyxis rose from her observation platform. Her 3 daughters, the heirs to the Tyrian dynasty, watched with varying expressions of interest and disdain. Jasper had studied their profiles extensively. Lyra, the eldest, whose tactical genius had crushed 3 planetary rebellions. Selene, the middle daughter, whose diplomatic mastery had expanded Tyrian influence across the galaxy. And Raven, the youngest, whose technological innovations had revolutionized their warfare capabilities. "The trial of ascension begins," Nyxis announced, her voice carrying across the arena. "Should the human champion prevail, Earth maintains its independence. Should he fall, humanity submits to Tyrian rule. Both parties have accepted the full terms and consequences." What Jasper hadn't known, what Earth's intelligence had failed to uncover, was the other half of the ancient law. Victory meant more than independence, it meant integration into the ruling family through marriage to ensure lasting peace. The truth had only been revealed moments before the trial began, too late to reconsider. The signal chimed, and Draken launched forward with impossible speed. Jasper rolled, decades of combat training taking over as the Tyrian's blade carved through the space where he'd stood. The alien metal sang through the air, its edge capable of molecular-level cuts. "Your species is young," Draken taunted, pressing his advantage. "You lack the evolution of millennia, the refinement of genetic perfection." Jasper didn't waste breath on replies. He'd studied Tyrian combat forms extensively, noting their reliance on cybernetic enhancement and raw power. But they had a weakness, their confidence in superiority left blind spots. The fight became a dance of precision versus power. Jasper suffered several cuts, his blood staining the ceremonial ground, but each movement was calculated. He let Draken believe he was tiring, struggling, until the perfect moment arrived. When Draken committed to a killing blow, Jasper executed the technique he developed by studying ancient Tyrian texts, a counter that used their own augmented strength against them. The move was considered impossible for non-enhanced beings to perform. The arena fell silent as Draken's blade clattered to the ground, followed by the mighty warrior himself. Jasper stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving, blade ready. "Impossible," Draken gasped, purple blood seeping from a precise wound that had disabled his primary cybernetic systems. High Archon Nyxis's voice cut through the silence. "The trial is complete. The human champion stands victorious." She descended to the arena floor, her daughters following in a cascade of flowing robes and subtle technological displays. "Commander Jasper Rhodes, you have earned humanity's independence. And by our most sacred laws, you have also earned the right, and obligation, to join our ruling line." Jasper's victory euphoria faltered as Nyxis continued. "You will wed my daughters, becoming part of the dynasty that governs our empire. Through this union, peace between our species will be eternally bound." Lyra, the eldest, regarded him with calculated interest, her cybernetic eyes scanning his capabilities. Selene's expression remained diplomatic, though Jasper caught a hint of curiosity in her subtle smile. Raven made no attempt to hide her scowl of disapproval. "I fought for Earth's freedom," Jasper said carefully, "not for marriage." "The laws are absolute," Nyxis replied. "You proved yourself worthy through combat. Now you must prove yourself worthy through unity. Refuse, and the trial's outcome is void." Jasper looked between the three sisters, each powerful in their own right, each now bound to him by laws older than human civilization. He had won humanity's freedom, but at what cost to his own? When does this union take place? He asked, knowing he had no real choice. The process begins now, Nixus declared. You will have one lunar cycle to know my daughters, and they to know you. Then the binding ceremony will unite our bloodlines forever. As medical drones attended to his wounds, Jasper caught the varying reactions of his future wives. Lyra analyzed him with military precision, likely already formulating strategies to maintain control. Selene approached with diplomatic grace, offering a traditional greeting that hinted at genuine interest. Raven remained distant, her technological interfaces flickering with what he suspected were calculations of her own. The human victory over Tyria's champion would become legend, but for Jasper, it was only the beginning. He had saved Earth from submission, only to find himself bound by chains of tradition and obligation. As he was led from the arena to begin his new life among the stars, he couldn't help but wonder if he had won a battle only to face an even greater war, one of hearts, politics, and the fate of two civilizations. Looking back at the arena one last time, Jasper realized that his real trial was just beginning. The coming days would test not just his combat skills, but his ability to navigate the complex waters of Tyrian politics, tradition, and the hearts of three women who now held his future in their hands. The celestial gardens of the Tyrian palace stretched endlessly beneath artificial stars, a masterwork of bioengineering and ancient tradition. Jasper walked its luminescent paths beside Selene, whose silver robes whispered against the crystal-studded ground. 2 weeks had passed since his victory, and each day brought new complexities to his unprecedented position. Your adaptation to our customs has been remarkable, Selene observed, her voice carrying the musical quality unique to Tyrian nobility. Though I sense you're troubled by more than just protocol. Jasper paused beside a floating fountain that defied gravity. I've noticed patterns in the security rotations. Gaps that shouldn't exist in a civilization as advanced as yours. A subtle smile curved Selene's lips. Ah, so you've been watching. Like my sister Lyra, always seeking the strategic angle. She gestured to a private alcove, shielded from surveillance by rare phosphorescent flowers. Perhaps it's time you understood more about the game you've joined. In another section of the palace, Lyra supervised combat drills, her cybernetic enhancements gleaming as she demonstrated advanced techniques to the elite guard. Her movement stopped mid-sequence when she noticed Jasper's approach later that evening. Your presence disrupts training, she stated flatly, though her troops had already dispersed. Unless you've come to discuss the Security Council's concerns about Earth's growing fleet. I've come about the assassination attempt on your sister last night, Jasper replied, watching her reaction carefully. The one that was carefully erased from all records. Lyra's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on him. Raven's encryption protocols were supposed to be unbreakable. They are. But I don't need technology to recognize when someone's wearing a blast-dampening bodysuit under their diplomatic robes. For the first time, Lyra's perfectly controlled expression showed a crack of genuine concern. Follow me, she commanded, leading him to her private tactical room. The chamber was a maze of holographic displays showing military movements across the galaxy. But it was a small, physical document on her desk that caught Jasper's attention, a star chart marked with ancient Tyrian script. The Ascension trial you won wasn't just about Earth, Lyra revealed, her voice lowered. It was meant to be rigged. Draken was supposed to win, triggering a sequence of events that would have consolidated power under a specific faction of our military council. The same faction that's now trying to eliminate potential obstacles. Jasper asked, thinking of the attempt on Selene's life. Our mother's rule has been progressive. Too progressive, for some. The old guard believes in Tyrian supremacy above all. A human victor in the trial, now set to marry into the ruling family. It's their nightmare scenario. Meanwhile, in her private laboratory, Raven worked furiously at a quantum terminal, streams of data flowing through her neural interface. She barely acknowledged Jasper's entrance, though her security systems had certainly announced his presence. "If you're here about the assassination attempt, I'm already 3 steps ahead," she said without looking up. The energy signature of the weapon matched our military's prototype designs. Designs that only 7 people have access to. 8, Jasper corrected, causing her to finally turn. "Your mother's private archives showed an 8 signature in the project files. One that was deliberately hidden." Raven's eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't have access to those archives. Just like you shouldn't have access to Earth's defense grid specifications. The ones you've been studying every night." A tense silence fell between them before Raven laughed, a sound Jasper hadn't heard from her before. "Perhaps I underestimated you, human. You're not just the brute who beat Draken. And you're not just the rebellious youngest daughter," Jasper replied. "You've been tracking the conspiracy longer than anyone." As the artificial night cycle began, Jasper met with all 3 sisters in a secure chamber deep within the palace. Celine brought intelligence from her diplomatic networks, Lyra contributed military analysis, and Raven provided technical evidence of the growing threat. "The old guard plans to use our binding ceremony as cover for a coup," Celine explained, her usual diplomatic calm strained. "They've corrupted nearly a third of our military commands." Lyra's tactical displays showed troop movements that seemed random but formed a pattern when viewed properly. "Forces are being positioned to strike key installations across 3 star systems. Including Earth," Raven added quietly. "They plan to use our world's defense grid to force submission, proving the weakness of human independence." Jasper absorbed the information, seeing how his victory had accelerated plans long in motion. "Your mother. Protected, but isolated," Lyra confirmed. "Her power has been systematically undermined for months. The marriage laws binding us together were meant to be her shield, creating an unbreakable alliance between our peoples. Instead, it's become the perfect opportunity to eliminate all threats to the old order," Celine concluded. Raven's interfaces flickered as she processed data. "We have 13 days until the binding ceremony. The coup will strike before we can formalize the alliance." Jasper looked at each sister in turn, the warrior, the diplomat, and the innovator. His future wives by law, now potential allies in a shadow war. "Then we have 12 days to ensure the ceremony never happens on their terms." Celine raised an elegant eyebrow. "What do you propose?" "They expect us to follow tradition. To play by rules they've spent centuries manipulating." Jasper smiled grimly. "So we'll do what humanity does best, we'll change the game entirely." As they began planning their countermove, Jasper realized something had shifted. The political marriage that had seemed like a chain now felt more like a shield, forged in the heat of shared purpose. Looking at the 3 remarkable women around him, each brilliant and dangerous in her own way, he understood that their forced union might be exactly what both their civilizations needed. The artificial stars continued their eternal dance overhead, unaware that beneath their cold light, an unlikely alliance was forming that would shake the foundations of 2 worlds. The coming days would test not just their combined skills, but the very bonds that tradition had forced between them. And somewhere in the shadows, their enemies were watching, waiting, ready to strike at the heart of everything they held dear. The orbital rings of Tyria Prime shimmered like scattered diamonds as Jasper's shuttle approached the military installation known as the Aegis Point. Beside him, Lyra piloted with precise movements, her cybernetic interfaces synchronizing with the ship's systems. "The Security Council expects my routine inspection," she said, her voice carrying an unusual edge. "They don't know about you hiding in the cargo hold. Having second thoughts about betraying protocol?" Jasper asked, noting the subtle tension in her usually perfect posture. "No." Lyra's response came quickly, surprising them both. "I've analyzed every tactical simulation. This is our best option, even if..." She paused, struggling with emotions her enhanced mind wasn't designed to process. "Even if it means going against everything I was programmed to be." The past 5 days had transformed their reluctant alliance into something none of them had expected. Each sister, in her own way, had begun to see beyond their initial prejudices. In the palace's diplomatic wing, Selene faced her own crisis of loyalty. The emergency council session had devolved into thinly veiled threats, with several elder members calling for a review of the succession laws. The human victory was unprecedented, Admiral Voss had declared, his ancient cybernetics pulsing with barely contained rage. Surely our laws never intended for an alien to hold such power over our dynasty's future. Selene maintained her diplomatic mask, though her heart raced. The laws are absolute, Admiral. As you've reminded us so often when they served your purposes. Her words carried just enough bite to make several council members shift uncomfortably. Meanwhile, in the depths of her quantum lab, Raven worked feverishly to decrypt the files they'd stolen from Aegis Point. Her normal disdain for human technology had given way to genuine appreciation as she and Jasper had combined Turian and Earth encryption methods to create something entirely new. The quantum signature is degrading, she muttered, neural interfaces streaming data faster than any normal mind could process. We'll lose the authentication codes for the defense grid if. Her words cut off as familiar hands steadied her trembling fingers. Jasper had returned from the orbital mission, his presence both irritating and inexplicably comforting. You're pushing your neural links too hard, he said softly. Since when does a human understand Turian biotechnology? She snapped, but didn't pull away. Since someone left detailed medical files on my terminal every night, presumably to help me understand what I was getting into with this marriage. Raven froze. She'd thought her midnight research deliveries were untraceable. That was your way of showing concern. His smile held no mockery. Just like Lyra leaving tactical assessments of Earth's weaknesses was her way of helping me strengthen our defenses. Or Selene ensuring I learned every detail of Turian courtship traditions. We weren't supposed to care, Raven whispered, finally voicing what all three sisters had been feeling. This was meant to be political. Tactical. Nothing more. The moment was interrupted by Lyra's urgent entrance. The old guard is moving faster than predicted. They've called for an immediate binding ceremony. Tomorrow. Selene appeared behind her, slightly breathless from running. Admiral Voss claims it's to ensure the stability of our people. They're forcing our hand. Jasper's mind raced. How many loyal ships do we have? 3 battle groups, Lyra reported. Positioned near the outer rings, as planned. My diplomatic corps is divided, Selene added. But the younger generation will stand with us when the time comes. Raven's interfaces flickered rapidly. The defense grid codes are almost decrypted. But there's something else in these files. Something about the original genetic programming of the royal line. That's not relevant now, Lyra started, but Raven cut her off. It is. Because according to this data, our cybernetic enhancements weren't just for advancement. They were for control. The old guard has had kill switches embedded in every royal descendant for generations. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Lyra's perfect posture faltered. Selene's diplomatic mask cracked. And Raven's interfaces surged with emotional feedback she couldn't control. Jasper looked at each sister, seeing past their carefully constructed facades to the women fighting for their very autonomy. Then we move tonight. Before they can use those switches. Before they force this ceremony. The binding ritual requires specific astronomical alignments, Selene objected. The sacred laws will mean nothing if we're dead or enslaved, Lyra finished, making a decision that went against centuries of ingrained loyalty. We create our own alignment. Our own ceremony. One that combines both our traditions. A hybrid encryption protocol, Raven suggested, excitement breaking through her usual reserve. Using both Earth and Turian algorithms to block their control signals while we take the defense grid. And a new diplomatic accord, Selene added, warming to the idea. Not just a marriage of convenience, but a true merger of our civilization's strengths. Jasper watched the sisters work in perfect synchronization, each contributing their unique skills to forge a new path. The forced political marriage had evolved into something far more powerful, a genuine partnership that could reshape two civilizations. As they finalized their plans, Jasper caught each sister watching him with expressions that held more than just tactical consideration. And he realized his own feelings had shifted from diplomatic necessity to something deeper, more complex, and far more dangerous to their enemies. The artificial night cycle began, but none of them noticed. In a matter of hours, they would either reshape the future of two species or fall to the very traditions that had brought them together. The countdown to revolution had begun, marked by the beating of four hearts increasingly in sync with one destiny. The night erupted in quantum fire as the first shots of revolution lit up Tyria Prime's rings. From the command center of the battleship Stellar Dawn, Jasper watched tactical displays flash with conflict alerts across 3 star systems. Defense grid compromised in sectors 7 through 13, Raven reported, her neural interfaces streaming data faster than ever. Admiral Voss's forces are responding exactly as predicted. Lyra's hands danced across the tactical arrays, coordinating their loyal battle groups. Outer ring secured. Inner defense platforms showing multiple authentication attempts. The diplomatic channels are chaos, Celine added from her station, managing communications across their improvised alliance. But the younger houses are rallying. They're tired of living under the old guard's control. Their plan had been elegant in its simplicity, use the old guard's own paranoia against them. The announcement of an early binding ceremony had sent ripples of panic through the conservative factions, forcing them to accelerate their coup timeline before they were fully prepared. But no plan survived first contact with the enemy. New quantum signatures detected, Raven announced suddenly, her voice tight with concern. These aren't Tyrian or Earth designs. They're something else. The tactical display shifted, showing massive vessels emerging from fold space at the edge of the system. Their architecture was alien even by Tyrian standards, all sharp angles and pulsing energy fields. The Nexus Dominion, Lyra whispered, recognition dawning. They were supposed to be a myth. Stories of the ones who gave us our first quantum technology. Not myths, Celine corrected, scanning ancient diplomatic records. They've been watching, waiting. The old guard didn't just want to control Tyria, they were preparing us for submission to the Dominion. Jasper watched as the massive ships began systematically disabling both loyal and rebel vessels. They're not taking sides. They're harvesting. Taking advantage of our civil war to collect specimens and technology. The revelation changed everything. Across the system, centuries of Tyrian political infighting suddenly seemed petty in the face of extinction. Even Admiral Voss's forces began broadcasting surrender signals, not to Jasper's alliance, but to the Dominion ships. They're giving up, Raven snarled, her interfaces flickering with rage. Choosing submission over independence. Like we demanded of Earth, Lyra noted quietly, her enhanced mind drawing parallels. We became what we feared. Jasper looked at each sister, seeing not just allies or future wives, but the best of both their civilizations. Then we show them another way. Raven, can you adapt your hybrid encryption to their quantum frequency? Her eyes lit up with understanding. Combine Earth's creative chaos with Tyrian precision, yes. Yes, I can blind their targeting systems. Lyra, if we give you a window, can your tactical systems coordinate a synchronized strike across all our forces? Loyal and rebel alike. Against a superior force? She smiled, an expression that would have been impossible for her weeks ago. That's what humans are best at, isn't it? Celine, we need you to convince the rebel forces to fight with us, not against us. Can you make them see the bigger picture? Family squabbles mean little when facing annihilation, she agreed, already composing the message that would unite their people. The next hours became legend in both human and Tyrian history. Raven's hybrid encryption scrambled the Dominion's quantum networks, creating gaps in their seemingly perfect defense. Lyra's tactical genius coordinated strikes that no AI could predict, using controlled chaos to overcome superior technology. And Selene's words united centuries-old enemies against a common threat. But it was Jasper who turned the tide. In the midst of battle, he realized the Dominion's true weakness: they couldn't comprehend the unpredictable. The combination of human improvisation and Tyrian precision created attack patterns their ancient algorithms couldn't process. Their breaking formation, Lyra reported as another Dominion vessel suffered cascade failures. Their quantum fields are destabilizing. Because they can't adapt, Raven realized, her interfaces pulsing with excitement. Their technology is perfect, but static. Unchanging. Like the old guard wanted us to be. The battle raged until Tyria's artificial dawn, but its outcome was decided the moment humans and Tyrians chose to fight as one. The Dominion retreated, leaving behind damaged ships and shattered assumptions about superiority. In the aftermath, as repair drones swarmed the orbital rings, Jasper found himself in the ship's observation dome with all three sisters. They watched their combined fleets securing the system, human and Tyrian ships moving in perfect synchronization. "The old guard is surrendering," Selene reported softly. "Not to us specifically, but to the idea of us. What we represent." "Evolution," Lyra added. "The strength of adaptation over stagnation." Raven's interfaces had finally calmed, matching her more centered emotional state. "We'll need to completely redesign our quantum networks. Combine approaches like we did today. Like we were meant to." Jasper looked at each of them: warrior, diplomat, and innovator. The political marriage that had seemed like a burden now felt like destiny. But there was no time to reflect on personal feelings. The Dominion's retreat was temporary, and both their civilizations needed to prepare. The first light of Tyria's sun caught the quantum crystalline structures of the orbital rings, creating a dance of light that seemed to mirror the complex paths that had brought them together. Their revolution had succeeded, but an even greater challenge lay ahead. The time had come to forge something entirely new from the best of both their worlds. 3 months after the Dominion's retreat, the Grand Hall of the Tyrian Palace hosted a ceremony unlike any in the history of two worlds. The traditional quantum crystals had been replaced with a hybrid array of human and Tyrian technology, symbolic of the changes sweeping through both civilizations. Jasper stood before the assembled dignitaries, wearing ceremonial armor that combined Earth's military tradition with Tyrian biotechnology. Beside him, the three sisters represented a new era for their people. Lyra's cybernetic enhancements now pulsed with redesigned quantum signatures, free from the old guard's hidden controls. Her tactical displays showed defense preparations across multiple systems, but her attention was focused on the ceremony with an intensity that had nothing to do with duty. Selene had transformed the diplomatic corps, bringing young voices from both species into positions of influence. Her traditional robes now incorporated elements of Earth fashion, a trend spreading rapidly through Tyrian society. Raven's interfaces sparkled with new hybrid protocols she developed by combining human creativity with Tyrian precision. The results had revolutionized their quantum technology, preparing them for the Dominion's inevitable return. High Archon Nixus, restored to power but with a new understanding of adaptation's importance, began the ceremony. "We gather not just to bind individuals, but to forge a future. The old laws demanded this union for political stability. But what stands before us today is something far more powerful, a choice freely made." The quantum arrays hummed as she continued, their light reflecting off the crystalline walls. "The Dominion showed us the price of stagnation. The cost of believing that tradition alone could protect us. But through this union, we have discovered that true strength lies in evolution, in the blending of different paths into something greater." Jasper looked at each sister in turn, remembering the journey that had brought them here. Lyra, who had taught him Tyrian battle forms while learning to embrace the emotions she'd been programmed to suppress. Selene, whose diplomatic skills had helped him navigate her world while she discovered the value of direct action. And Raven, whose brilliant mind had merged two technological traditions while her heart learned to trust beyond logic. The binding ritual began, but not with the traditional submission protocols. Instead, Quantum energies merged with human DNA in ways Raven had designed, creating connections that could never be controlled or corrupted by outside forces. The Dominion will return, Lyra had said during their planning. We need every advantage. Then let them come, Selene had replied with uncharacteristic fire. They'll find neither humans nor Tyrians, but something new. Something adaptive, Raven had added, her interfaces pulsing with possibilities. Evolution made manifest. Now, as the quantum field settled around them, Jasper felt the connection to each sister strengthen. Not a chain of political obligation, but a bond of chosen loyalty and something deeper, love that had grown in the crucible of revolution and change. The ceremony concluded not with traditional Tyrian protocols or Earth customs, but with a new ritual that honored both while becoming something more. As the assembled dignitaries watched, old enemies now standing together, the quantum arrays created a display of unprecedented beauty, the double helix of human DNA intertwining with Tyrian quantum patterns in an eternal dance. Later, in the private chambers that had become their shared sanctuary, Jasper and the sisters watched the celebration unfolding across both their worlds. Ships from Earth and Tyria performed joint maneuvers in the rings overhead, their crews learning to combine the best of both military traditions. The outer sensors detected quantum disturbances in the Carina sector, Lyra reported, but without her former tension. The Dominion is testing our defenses. Let them test, Selene said, her diplomatic calm now warmed with confidence. Every probe reveals more about their limitations. Raven's interfaces flickered as she processed the data. Their perfect systems can't adapt to our hybrid technology. They don't understand what we've become. Jasper watched the stars through the quantum crystal windows, each point of light representing possibilities that neither humans nor Tyrians had imagined before. The political marriage that had seemed like a diplomatic prison had become a catalyst for revolution, not just in politics but in the very essence of both their species. We're not just preparing for war, he realized, speaking thoughts that had been growing since their first victory. We're showing them a different path. Evolution instead of stagnation. Growth instead of control. Each sister moved closer, their unique personalities now fitting together like perfectly designed components of a greater whole. Lyra's tactical strength, Selene's diplomatic wisdom, and Raven's technical brilliance had combined with Jasper's human adaptability to forge something unprecedented in the galaxy. The celebration continued below, but they remained in their sanctuary, watching the stars and planning for the challenges ahead. Their love story had become legend in two worlds, but its true significance went beyond romance. They had proven that the greatest power in the universe wasn't perfect technology or ancient traditions, but the ability to grow, to change, and to become something greater than the sum of their parts. As Tyria's twin moons rose over the quantum seas, casting their light across worlds forever changed by an unexpected union, Jasper and his wives stood ready to face whatever the galaxy had planned. They were no longer human or Tyrian, forced together by tradition or law. They had become something new, a bridge between worlds, a catalyst for evolution, and a love story written in the stars themselves.